All right, I think we can get started. Thanks for tuning in today. This is just going to be a basic introduction to Notion. It's probably going to be most useful if you're not using Notion at the moment and you're keen on getting started with it. It's going to be, excuse me, more of a demonstration rather than like a presentation with slides. That's going to be how the talk's going to go today. And just to give you an outline of what we're going to talk about, I'm first of all just going to show you a demo of how I use Notion. And I thought that would be useful because when I first started using Notion, I found it really difficult to find a kind of example of a simple setup. When you start looking around for examples of Notion workspaces, you see some really elaborate setups. And that's awesome. It's great to see what Notion can do. But for me, it was a little bit intimidating in seeing how to just get started with the basics. So I'll show you how I use mine today. And then we'll go through how to set up your own workspace, how to take notes in a Markdown format, and then how to export that Markdown. Also show you how to save links in Notion just using the web clipper. We'll look at the difference between free plans and a paid plan. Touch on how to export your entire workspace. And then at the end, I've got some links that I think would be pretty useful for people. All right, so here we can see my Notion setup. So I basically have these high-level pages, and then these pages are all nested. So I have my course setup like this, where for the course that I'm enrolled in, I have an individual page for each lesson. And then that individual lesson page basically acts as like a contents page to access further nested pages that have got the course specific notes. And you can access these nested pages either clicking them through like the lesson page, or you can click the nested pages within here. And then within each of my pages that have the actual note contents, I've got a like table of contents, so I can easily switch between the notes. And you can see that my notes have a pretty simple setup. I've got the different headings, just notes, and then there's some code blocks in here as well. And with the code blocks, you can copy those to your clipboard, paste them into your IRB, and they'll work fine. And you can choose different, basically the different languages, all you have is really some syntax highlighting. There's nothing particularly fancy with choosing these different languages. But it can be nice to have that. So also within each of my courses, I don't just have my notes, I have a collection of questions. And this is essentially like questions that come up that I think about when I'm going through the material or things that we come up with in a study group. And the questions that I have here are things that I have duplicated in my Anki flashcards. But the reason I also have them here is I like that you can toggle the answer. So you can hide the answer for when you're reviewing them and then just check if you're correct. And it's useful having them within this space because I personally only have one deck for my flashcards. And if I'm trying to find the answer to a specific card, for example, if I'm just in the store and I'm kind of just in the line mentally thinking about my notes and I think, oh, what was the definition for example, encapsulation? To find that specific flashcard in Anki, I find is just a nightmare. And so by having them here, I can just quickly open my Notion app on my phone, take a look and find the answer. I also have a link to the book on object-oriented programming. That's just one that's in the Launch School open bookshelf. And that's a hyperlink that takes me directly to that book because I find that really useful. I also have a collection of blogs from different Launch School students on this topic. And what I really like is that when you save an article, like a Medium article within Notion, you can read the whole article within your Notion workspace itself. It retains the original formatting and all of the hyperlinks that are in the original article, they still work as well. So that works really nice. And then I also keep a collection of things that came up in study groups, just so I can go back refresh those later. So I really like that you can have not only your notes, but you can also have like kind of other things like the blogs and stuff, everything that relates to that, that course in one space. I really like that. And something that I've also started doing is, now I've gone through kind of all of the theory lessons, I'm making like an overview of the topic. And this is really forcing me to just think about the material in a different way, more of like a high level concept rather than focusing on just kind of each small individual bit of information. And it's making sure that I truly understand things, not just that I can regurgitate the topics. And so this is just a mind map that I made in PowerPoint that's been copy and pasted into here. I have a contents page at the top, and then I have really like the high level core concepts of the RB120 course. And then within that, I can link to more detailed notes. So I can have further nested pages that have got much more detail in them that I can look at if I want to. So that page is nested within this one overview. And again, it's something that can be accessed from that page structure. So in addition to having notes, I find it really useful to save kind of links that people share on Slack. Slack's really great. Like, people are really generous at sharing useful information on Slack. But a lot of the time that's going to be useful to me when I'm further along in the curriculum than I currently am. And we all know that information from Slack disappears pretty quickly. So as soon as I see something that I think is going to be useful later on, I add that into my Notion using the web clipper, which I'll show you later. And I've subdivided that into different topics. I don't have much in each of these topics because I'm very conscious of, like that article that Chris wrote about not kind of succumbing to clickbait. I kind of choose what I genuinely think is going to have true purpose for me later on. So yeah, just a tutorial about learning more in Git, a couple of books that have been recommended. Juliet shared the code wars that she was given for a live coding challenge or one to take home. So I've just saved those in a table view and I can tag them for the different purposes. I've just got like the name of the problem and a link to the web page where those are hosted. Some videos that will be useful later on. And yeah, just some projects. So that's really great. And it's also very easy to kind of move your information around in Notion. So for example, I've got this post-core one that is just a collection of blogs that people have shared for career advice. And I think that, oh, actually that would be better placed in my future LS topic. So I can just drag and drop it into there and then it's here. So that's really nice for when kind of your mental models and things evolve. It's nice being able to move your information around. I also found that what was useful for me is that when I'm going through a course, I particularly found this in 101, I'd come across a topic that I didn't know, that I thought, oh, I need to look into that, but I didn't want to kind of stop the flow of that current lesson. So I would just make a note in here with a little tick box of something that I needed to go through. And then I have a page that just has some links that are useful for kind of achieving those things that I need to work on. And what's nice is when you save some links in Notion, you can change the way that you view them. So this is just a list view, but you can also switch to a gallery view and you can have like a bit of a preview of what's in that article. And when you click on it, you kind of have this pop-up, which is like a preview of that page. You have a link to the original article. You can tag it, add properties, comments, whatever you need to do to personalize it for you. And you can read it through here, or if you just click on this, open as a page, you'll see the article in your just standard workspace. Something else that's really useful is that if you're working on a page that kind of you find yourself coming back to quite regularly, or is the current page that you're working on, you can just click on this favorite and then get added up here. So you can just click directly on that. And then when you've had enough of working with that page, you just click it again and it's removed from the favorite button. I really like that. You'll see that the actual page setup, like it's not the full screen. And you can change that with this menu here, where you can go to full width. In this, you can also change the text of your page if you prefer. But I actually quite like having this smaller kind of setup, because I find that usually when I'm using Notion to take notes, I'll kind of split my window. So I'll have half of my window will be my Notion, and then half of my window is going to be the launch school. And you can just close the sidebar out the way, split this down, and it's really nice kind of clean workspace for taking notes. So that's, yeah, kind of most of the things that I have on my workspace. I know that people have a lot more complex setups, but I find that this currently is working really well for me. I've been using Notion for a couple of months now, and so I'm kind of still evolving it and kind of playing around with things as I need, but for me it's working well. And one thing I'd recommend, I like using the icons, but try and retain a kind of theme for them. Like blog posts for me is always this icon, and then if I'm answering problems, then I use like a smiley face setup, just to kind of keep things a little bit neater and smoother. So if we go back to the outline of the talk, and now we're going to look at how you set up your own workspace. So you just visit this web page and log in. There are apps for on the Windows or a Mac desktop, and also on your mobile. One thing to be aware of is that they're not native apps. So it can be a little bit slow to open. None of your information is stored on your local machine. All of your data is stored on the cloud. And I know I've never had a problem with the apps opening on Windows. It can sometimes take like a couple of seconds to open, but nothing significant. But I know that a few people have reported that on Windows, it can be really slow. Sorry, on Mac, it can be pretty slow. So it's just something to bear in mind. And you can have an account on several devices, and your workspace will automatically synchronize between those different workspaces. And if you're not on your own machine, you can access Notion through just a web browser. You can log in there and you can still get your full workspace. That's really nice. So I'm just going to switch workspaces now. You can have multiple workspaces on a free account. So I've set up just this example one here just to work on today. And when you create a new workspace, you'll have this getting started markdown that comes with it already. And that's got a few tips of kind of basically the things that we're going to cover today, and some videos of tutorials, and also a link to the YouTube channel, which has got lots of tutorials in there for any specific purposes. This is a markdown that I've created, which we'll go through in a minute. And also Notion has something called templates. And these are kind of pre-populated Notion pages. I personally haven't found these particularly useful. They haven't really fitted any of my needs, but there are lots of them in here. So you can kind of go through them and see if you like any of these. And I know Lena mentioned that she has created her own template. So when she starts working on a new topic, she has a template that's pre-populated with kind of the high level concepts that she wants to work on. Things like, yeah, the mental model, any questions related to that. And so that might be useful for you. And I've included a link at the end that shows you how to create your own templates. You can also import data into Notion. So if you're currently working in Google Docs or in Evernote, you can import that into your Notion. Before I started using Notion, I was just writing my notes in Vim. And that's actually how I prefer to carry on working, is just taking the notes in Markdown in Vim and importing them into my Notion. But currently there is a bit of a problem with that. I'll just show you. So when you import, this one, you will find that when you import your Markdown notes, the code blocks don't format correctly. So you see that they've imported as a plain text, and it's just one continuous line of code. So all of the kind of formatting, like the alignment, has been lost. And if you change this to Ruby, all it does is give you the syntax highlighting, but it's not gonna, oops. it does not format that as the correct code again. That's really annoying. I'm not going to spend kind of time going through and realigning all of these. I have contacted Notion because it's not just an issue that I'm having. I looked online and a few people have this problem. And Notion said that the developers have added it to the list of things that they're going to work on. So hopefully in the future, this won't be so much of a problem. So if we go back to this example one, and I'll show you how to create a page. So it's really easy. When you want to start a new page, you just click on add a page and you'll get this untitled document here. So you have various options of how you can kind of personalize it. You can add a cover picture. Just take a second. You can change your cover. There's a gallery of things that come with here. You can upload your own picture, or there's some open source images here that you can choose. You can search for whatever you want and just pop that in. Also, you can add an icon. There's a whole range of different things available there. And then you add your title. So we'll just say, this is my Markdown. Now, I don't want any of these. I don't want to import. I don't want a template. I just want a plain document that I can start with. So just click empty. And the most important thing in Notion is that everything is a block. And that's what we have here. So basically every line in Notion is a block, and it's up to you how you treat this block. So this block can be just text, it can be a code block, it can be an image, it can be a table. You have a huge number of options of what you do with this block, but every single line is a new block. So if we want to, there are various ways that you can achieve like the Markdown syntax. So you can either just use a traditional Markdown. So if we want to do like a second level heading, we can do, it will automatically, so when you do the two hashes, it's going to automatically transfer into a heading. And you can say this is heading 2. Or another way of doing it is you click on this 6-dot menu here and you go to this turn into. So this gives you all the options of what you can do with this text. So I can turn it just back to text, or I can turn it into heading 2, turn it into a code. And another way to access that menu is when you first start writing that sentence, and we'll just start a new code block, is you just the /, that brings up this full menu. And this full menu has not only what you can do with text, but also your other options as well. So if you're sharing a page, you can mention a person, you can insert a database, you can insert media, you can embed a document, like a PDF, something from Google Drive, a tweet, maps. Really, there's a huge number of options of things that you can embed into your blocks. But for now, we just want this to be a header. So we'll say this is my header. And then if you just press enter to go to a new line, this is going to bring you to a new block. Now, if you wanted to just type text, that's fine. This is my normal text for your notes. And then if we want to insert a code block, it's the same. You can insert a code block by the standard Markdown syntax, which is 3 backticks. So with the 3rd backtick, it automatically transforms into a code block. And then you can put example method. One thing that I find a bit annoying is that you don't get auto indent with a code block, because at the end of the day, Notion isn't really a full code editor. So if you find that you're writing several lines of code, it can actually be better just to write it in your normal code editor and copy and paste it into the code block, and then you'll retain the formatting rather than remember having to tab, and like you don't get the auto closing of brackets or things like that. But really all you're getting is kind of syntax highlighting. You can also have code within just your normal sentence. So this is and then if you wanted to highlight it as code, just 1 backtick, and then close it with a backtick, and you'll have that. You can color your text however you like. And again, there are various ways of achieving that. So if you wanted to turn this text red, one way is that you can highlight it and you should access a menu. Nope. So you should get a text menu that pops up here, but we're not getting that right now. But that's okay, because we can just use the color function here. Oops. We can color our text red. If you want to turn your text into bold, you can use Control and B like you would on a word processor, or again, you can use the traditional Markdown syntax. Oops. And that will turn it into bold. You can also color the background of text if you like. And some other things that are pretty good for when you're writing notes is they have like a quote function. So if you want, this is something important, that will stand out in your notes. And another option is something that's called a call out. So this is also important. It's a really nice way of kind of emphasizing points within your notes. To create a toggle, that's really easy as well. So we just / search for a toggle, and that brings up a toggle list. One thing to be aware of is that you have to click to kind of open the toggle, and then this is where what you want to be hidden. Because if you don't do that and you just like enter the next line, basically all you're going to do is start another toggle block here. It won't be hidden within your toggle. You can write bullet lists, again, just standard, or you can access the list through the drop-down menu, numbered lists as well. If you're somebody who likes graphics, you can import images. For example, this is one that I really like for pass by reference and pass by value. And you can just / image. And we're going to embed this image, and you just paste in the link, embed your image, and that'll be within your notes. And also you can write a caption if you like. So it's pretty easy to get some really nice and kind of professional looking notes quite easily. And I really like that. I like my notes to look pretty, but I'm not going to invest a huge amount of time in achieving that. Whereas I think Notion really lets you do it without much effort at all. So once you have your Markdown, one thing to be aware of is you really want to export your data. So Chris made the point in the Slack group before that Notion is a startup, is funded by venture capitalists. If the company disappears overnight, you don't want your data to disappear with it. But fortunately, you can export it in a Markdown format. So by accessing the three-dot menu here, you have your export functions. And there are a couple of ways that you can export your files. So you can export it as a Markdown, and it'll export, if you have any tables, they'll just be CSVs, or you can export in HTML or as a PDF. So obviously I prefer to export in a Markdown format. And when you export, you'll have a zip folder. You unzip the folder, and then your file will be saved in a as an .md file. And then personally, what I do is then drag that file into my repository in GitHub. So if you just go to your repository and you say that you want to add a file, so upload files, and then you can just drag and drop it into here and write your commit message in here, and then pull that into your local area in your terminal as well. So that just makes sure that that all of your files are safe, and that if anything happens to Notion, you haven't lost all of your work. One thing to be aware of is that if you are using things like coloring the code or toggles, not all of that syntax is going to be retained when you export your Markdown. So in this example here, I put a cover image, we've got an icon, we've got several headings. Oh, just to show you, if you wanted to do a contents page, that's just again, that menu, contents, and then anything that you've highlighted as a header will automatically generate this table of contents page for you. So it's really easy. So within this example, Markdown here, I've got a couple of headings. So in here, I've got a code block that's I've created in Notion. Here is a gist that I've embedded within here, because that means that you get to retain your the line numbers, and the formatting makes it a bit better. I've got different colored text, some text boxes, a quote, a call out, and then this file I've popped into GitHub just so you can see what it looks like. In here, and you can see, split this one, that we really haven't retained all of that format. So bold text is retained. The code block the indentation has changed. The gist isn't embedded. We've got a hyperlink to that one. The colored text has been lost. The tick box is still present. The quote is still present. The call out is standard text. And with a toggle, we have the toggle has been converted into a bullet point. The actual toggle text is top line, and then what was inside the toggle has been hidden within here. So it's not really a problem if you are only going to be using your notes within Notion and you're just kind of putting them to GitHub as a safety net. But if you do want your notes to kind of be easily transferable between different interfaces, then that is something you have to bear in mind. Because if we look at the same notes within Vim, you can see that, yeah, where we have a tab here, whereas it should be 2 spaces, and we've lost that coloring as well. Just something to consider. All right, we can go back to the outline. So hopefully that shows you it's actually fairly easy to create your Markdown, and really everything comes through that / menu. And just peruse through that, and you should be able to find everything that you want within that menu. And if we go back to the other workspace, and we go through the talk. So the other great thing is saving links in Notion. Like I showed you, you can save, have blogs within your workspace. That's really great. That's really easy to achieve. I have a Chrome plugin that's called the Notion Web Clipper, but you can get that for different browsers as well, and it's really easy to use. So here I just have some blogs that have been from different launch school students, and if I want to import those into my Notion workspace, I just click on the Notion Web Clipper here, and you can choose which workspace you add it to, and then where you're gonna add it. So you can save it directly into different pages, or you can create a new links database. We'll save that one, and we'll save this one. And then when you go into Notion, you'll see that your links are here. And then you can choose how you view them. Like I said previously, at the moment, they're just a list. We can view them as a gallery instead. You can create that. This is more useful for, I've seen people save things from Amazon and you get like a preview here, or YouTube videos and you have a preview. It really depends on what you're saving. So you can just play around with those and see how you like them. But also, even if they are saved within here, you can quite easily move those code blocks wherever you want them to go. That'll just be nested within there. So yeah, that all works very well. And then go back to here. Looking at the difference between a free plan and a paid plan. So previously with a free plan in Notion, you could only have a certain number of blocks before you had to start paying. But now you can have an unlimited number of blocks and pages, and you can share with your pages with 5 guests and synchronize across your devices for free. There's a few things that you will, like exporting data. If you're exporting things as a Markdown, you can export the nested pages as well for free. But if you want to export your pages as a PDF and you have nested pages, you can only do that if you're paying for it. And they are working on API access, which apparently that is only going to be available on a paid plan. I haven't found really anything that's not available on the free plan that you can't work around. So for me, the free plan has been just fine. If you wanted to export your entire workspace rather than individual pages, personally, as soon as I finish a page, I automatically export it. Just if there are any kind of niggling little things that you want to change, it's much easier to do that on one page at a time rather than exporting your entire workspace. But it's easy enough to do. You just go to the settings and members and then access the settings. Here you can also change the name of your workspace as well. You can do an icon, and here is where you export all of your workspace content. And again, you can only export it in Markdown for free. If you want to export it as a PDF, then you're going to have to pay for that one. But if you export the whole thing, again, you get a zip file, and all of your individual Markdown files will be within that. And just a couple of useful links. So obviously we should all be aware of security and privacy with any data. You can access the Notion web pages to get the specifics on that. This is a great video for going over the basics. If you want to create your own template, this is a tutorial to do it. Creating flashcards with spaced repetition system in Notion. It is in theory possible. I've seen some videos on it, but to be honest, it's very complex. It looks like a lot of work to set up, and the product that you end up with is slightly worse than using Anki. So personally, I don't think it's worth it. I just prefer to stick to kind of the page of questions with the toggle rather than try and introduce a spaced repetition system. But if it's something that you really want to do, like there is information out there to achieve it. All right, I think we're pretty much out of time now. So if you have any questions, let's just check the questions in the chat. Okay, do you know if they're planning to integrate drawing mind maps? I'm not sure if they are at the moment. You can definitely just take screenshots and put those in as a just as an image. But in terms of if you had a mind map that you've written on a different program and you wanted to kind of have those linked, I'm not sure about that. And Megan asks, can you edit the Notion pages from the phone app or view only? No, you can edit them. It's probably a little bit fiddly. I've never tried, to be honest, actually creating a note on my phone. I only use it for viewing, but you can do that.